A lo mejor algunas han escuchado del libro Strangers, a Memoir of Marriage. Es un bestseller del New York Times, publicado en enero, y es un exitazo. Es un libro lleno de lecciones para todas ustedes que están casadas o que planean casarse. Y para mí es un libro de lecciones de amor, pero de matrimonio, pero de familia, pero de maternidad, pero de dinero y tantas otras cosas de las cuales las mujeres todavía tenemos que seguir aprendiendo. Les presento a la autora Belle Burden. Ella es abogada, vive en Nueva York y está aquí hoy con nosotros para compartirles su historia. So let's start at the beginning. For everybody listening to the show, tell us the story of your life and the story of your marriage.
Well, the book opens in March of 2020, which was the second week of COVID lockdown in the United States. I think it was similar probably for you.
Exactly the same.
Very scary time where we didn't know what would happen, when we would get a vaccine, when schools would reopen. So my husband and I moved with our two daughters to Martha's Vineyard, which is where I am right now. We have a house here that's very isolated where we felt very safe. And we had a pretty cozy time. My husband was chopping wood and building fires. I was cooking, taking walks. And then one night when I was cleaning up dinner, I was mopping the floor. I got a call and I didn't recognize the number. So I let it go to voicemail and then I pressed play and it was a man's voice. And he said, "I'm trying to reach Belle. I'm sorry to tell you this, but your husband is having an affair with my wife." And I was completely shocked. I thought we were very happily married. I was very much in love with my husband. And that night he really tried to explain it, said he was very sorry, that he loved me and only me. But in the morning, he walked into our bedroom fully dressed.
How long had you been married?
21 years.
21 years.
3 kids, with no indication ever from him that he was unhappy. So that next morning, he walked into our...
So wait, how do you confront him? What did you say? Like, I just heard a voice message from such and such and...
Well, when I came down the stairs and he came up the stairs, he knew that I had been told. I could tell in his demeanor that he knew I had been told. So I was just shocked. And so I just listened to him. And he told me that it had not been going on for very long. It was someone he met through work. It didn't mean anything. I asked for her name. I asked how old she was. And then I had to go take care of our girls who called for me. And in the morning, he came into our bedroom. He looked absolutely cold and said to me that he thought he wanted our life, but he didn't. He thought he was happy, but he wasn't. And that he was going to leave right then, and that he wanted a divorce. And he walked out of the house. He got in his car and he left the island. And he followed through. He filed for divorce. He left our family. He didn't want any custody of our kids, and became someone I didn't recognize at all after 2 decades of marriage.
Okay, hold on. So I have questions, Belle. My first question is, after you tell him, I know they just told me you're having an affair and you go to bed that evening, and what are you thinking? After he said, it doesn't mean anything or whatever, it's something very recent, no big deal. What are you thinking that evening?
So that evening, I am in absolute agony. I feel so upset and betrayed. I do not sleep at all. He falls asleep in our son's room. And I'm thinking, we are going to have to do therapy on Zoom. We are going to be stuck in this house together. We are with our 2 daughters. It is COVID lockdown. New York is shut down. We're going to have to be stuck together, and it's going to be really hard, really difficult. I do not know if I can forgive him. I do not know if I can make my marriage work. I do not know if we're going to get past this. But I thought we would try. I thought we would at least try to, I've seen this happen in other marriages, and it can be an opportunity to get closer and to really do important work together as a couple. I did not realize that night that he would be unwilling to do that work, to do any therapy, and that it would turn so quickly into a divorce.
So from that point, he says, I want to get a divorce. I thought I was happy. I'm not. I thought I wanted this life. I don't. So fast forward how many weeks? Because he left that day, right? So how many weeks, how many months, and what happens after?
So what happens after is he goes to New York. I am hysterical. I am trying to get him on the phone. When I do get him on the phone, I'm begging for some kind of explanation, whether it's because he's in love or he didn't love me anymore or some other reason, and he won't tell me anything. He's very calm. He's completely shut down, and I am hysterical. And he finally says, I can't talk to you because you're too upset. You're too angry.
God. Oh
and
my God.
it is like a switch so quickly where I become sort of the hysteric and he's the calm one, even though he's done something pretty crazy to walk out on your family during a pandemic. But I think this happens to women a lot. All of a sudden we're painted as hysterical. So he's in New York. After about a month, I call him and I tell him that we have to tell the kids. I'd been pretending for the kids that nothing was wrong.
Okay.
And so he comes back to the vineyard.
But there's something that you say in the book about your hysteria. You were becoming somebody that wasn't you, that had never been you.
I think what I say in the book is I had very normal emotions. These are very normal emotions to have.
Yeah.
This heartbreak, the sadness, the confusion,
the anger, everything.
Yeah. And at that point, I couldn't even access anger. I was just so heartbroken. This was the love of my life, the man I thought I was going to grow old with, father of my children, the man I trusted more than anyone in the world. And so this version of myself that was just so upset and hysterical, was, I guess, new to me. But I think what was notable about that is that he was, 100 steps ahead of me. So his calmness is because he knew what was coming and I didn't. And so I'm just trying to catch up in the story to try and understand what is happening to me. And I think that often women who are left are very quickly painted as sort of out of control, can't deal with them, the rejected wife. You see the stereotype in movies,
of course,
and books. And I had become that. And it was very hard to get my bearings again. And it was very hard to deal with someone who had turned so cold, just so icy cold, like almost like we had never met before.
Oh my God. Well, we say, I guess it works as well in English, you don't know who you marry until you get a divorce.
Yes.
So we have to tell the children and what happened.
So he comes up to the vineyard, and we sit in our living room and he tells the girls that he hasn't been happy and that we're going to divorce. One of my daughters, who was 15, sat there with her arms crossed, and she actually had known. She'd known the whole time because she saw a text on my iPad. And my younger daughter ran downstairs very upset. And then he turns to me and he says,
the sandwich.
Can you make me a sandwich? So this has been hotly debated in the United States, the sandwich. I never thought it would be such a story, but it has become a lightning rod.
Exactly. But there's so much behind the sandwich on his part. And I would like for you to explain to everybody what you're thinking about when you decide to do or not to do the sandwich.
So
about the sandwich.
Yes, I think people have seen it as me being complacent, we call it a doormat in the United States. that I went and made the sandwich. But I actually was not thinking about him at all. I wasn't thinking about his hunger or making him happy. I was thinking about my two daughters. One of them is sitting there, and it is a horrible moment for children when parents tell them about a divorce. And I did not want to make that moment worse for her by having a moment of conflict. He had not been there for a month, and I wanted him to spend time with the girls. So I wanted him to go downstairs and to find our other daughter and spend time with her. Of course, he did not do that. He went to the basement to look for our prenup. But the thing that I haven't mentioned very much is that I also did not want him in my kitchen. I felt it was sort of the heart of the family. Where my daughter had been cooking, and we'd been spending so much time that I'd been cleaning, during COVID. And I wanted that as a safe space. So I think for all those reasons, I made the best decision I could make in that moment and went and made the sandwich. And when people, it's mostly younger women, say that it was very anti-feminist to do that, I say, okay, I made the sandwich, but I also wrote the book. And I think you can view the entire book as a feminist act to tell this story and to be very open and honest about this story.
Yeah, but you also said something else when you were making the sandwich. You're thinking, I want to make the best sandwich.
Yes, I was not going to make a bad sandwich. I wanted to make the best sandwich I could possibly make because I wanted him to feel something. I wanted him to, as he's leaving our house for the second time, to be reminded of, the sandwich represented home and warmth and nurturing, all the things that we had created together. But he ate the sandwich, and I don't think he thought about any of those things.
And I think that's one of the biggest fantasies and myths around infidelity, that you tend to think, what is wrong with me? What could I have done different? Why did he decide to leave me for another woman? Is there something wrong? And that is a very natural process. So how did you go through the process? And what is the conclusion that you finally came up with?
So yes, you immediately go to that. What was wrong with me? What was lacking in me? Why would he choose somebody else? And I think that inquiry comes with a lot of shame. And I think that shame is added to by how you feel in the world afterwards. I happened to be in a very married place that spring here on Martha's Vineyard. And you go from being a part of something as a married person to not being a part of something. And I felt tremendous shame that my husband had rejected me. I felt tremendous shame that I was unable to keep my family together. And I did it. Your brain rests in a place where it is somehow your fault. I just turned 50. So all the feelings about being older, being middle-aged, not being attractive enough anymore, all of those things were there. And it took me a long time to view it differently, to start to understand that it probably wasn't about me at all. Not that I'm perfect, but I think this was, given how we'd not had that much conflict, and he was not able to articulate why he was leaving. I think this is really a lot that was going on with him, that he may not even understand. But it took me a long time to get there, to not carry around so much shame that this had happened to me.
Okay, talk to us about financial decisions and your mistakes.
When my ex-husband and I were engaged, my family insisted that I sign a prenup. It said that anything we brought into the marriage would remain ours, but anything earned during the marriage would be split 50-50 if we divorced. My then fiance asked me to change that to say that nothing would be shared unless we affirmatively decided to put it in joint name. I had money that was in trust. I used the money to buy our apartment, and then I put it in joint name because I believe that's what you do when you're married. Meanwhile, my husband started earning a lot of money. I was not aware of how much, and he kept it all in his name. He never put my name on any of his assets. When we divorced, I was in the position of having put the bulk of my assets in joint names, so he could claim 50% of it, and I had no entitlement to anything that he had earned. My biggest mistake was just not being aware. I am a former corporate lawyer. I'm well educated, but I convinced myself that he was much better able to handle everything. And I paid our bills online, but I really lost touch with the big picture. And I convinced myself over those years that I really couldn't understand it, which is just not true. We can all understand it.
And what we can all learn from you.
It really comes down to paying attention, talking to your partner, understanding on a regular basis what your assets are, what the income is, whose name is on what. Are you keeping everything separate? Are you sharing in everything? You can do it a variety of different ways, but you have to know, no matter how happily married you are, you have to know what will happen to you if you divorce.
So was your divorce, financially speaking, very difficult to come to terms with regarding what you were going to keep, what he was going to keep, what was going on, and what was his proposal?
It was very difficult because he pushed to have and was successful in having our prenup enforced, which means that he could claim half of both of my homes, which felt very difficult because I was trying to keep my children's lives stable. It also felt very punitive because he was making all this money, yet he was going to take from me what had been mine. So it was very difficult, and it went up right to the edge of us starting the trial process, which was his threat to take both those things. At the last minute, he agreed that I could keep both homes. And he pays child support. But I did not have any form of settlement from him of his assets, which I have, I am fine. I am in a much better position than most women. But what's hard about it is, and I write about this in the book, is that he really saw no value to my contributions to his career over those 20 years. He really just thought that my assets were our assets and his assets were his. That's, I think, what he felt. And that was really hurtful.
It's a book that we all need to read. Please go and buy it as soon as possible. Belle, it was so great having you on the show. Thank you very much. I always say share knowledge, because you never know when somebody else's experience will change somebody else's lives.